Well, hello there, good people. It's Johny-J here, and welcome to another episode of the 3C Show. And as always, I am super excited to be here in my new studio. Got things set up for 2023, so hoping to bring you some more tutorials. But today, I've got a little Lightroom tip I call cloud sculpting that I want to show you. You know, often the problem we used to have in Lightroom is the localized adjustments were so difficult, but the new masking tool, well, I think since version 12, don't quote me, but it's absolutely amazing some of the things you can do in Lightroom now. And this is one of the things that I've come up with that I call cloud sculpting. It's a Photoshop technique actually that I've seen someone else do, and I've just duplicated something similar in Lightroom. Photoshop, Lightroom, confusion. All right, let's get into it. Let's jump onto the screen. So we've got a picture here of Zenith Beach in Tomaree National Park, and yeah, you can see the light's pretty flat. It's not a bad photograph. Composition's okay. I've done some localized adjustments, but it's a bit blah. There's still a lot more needs to happen, definitely down here in the foreground, but I wanted to concentrate on the clouds. You know, I wanted to bring a bit more drama, a bit more pop in those clouds, okay? And that's what this technique really will do for you once you understand how it works, okay? So we can just go to sky selection, you know, and we can do the usual things that we would normally do, you know, a little bit of dehaze, a little bit of clarity, pump up the blacks and whites a little bit, and put up a bit of contrast there. And you can see we're starting to get a bit of drama in the sky, but it just looks funky and it just doesn't look right. The one technique that I have done in the past, this is probably a bonus technique, is you can intersect with a linear gradient, and that tends to help this transition zone here. Still got your initial sky selection, but inside that sky selection, use this linear gradient to affect that adjustment. And I'll show you there now. And you can see what's happening there. It's feathering out that transition at the bottom. So you've still got your original sky selection. And as I feather out this linear gradient a little bit more. So there you go. So that's that linear gradient inside of that sky selection. So you've got your initial sky selection, okay? And then you've intersected it with this linear gradient. And what it's doing is softening up that transition down towards the horizon line, which it works. It's not a bad technique. It's one to put in your tool bag. But the problem is, you know, we're not getting any of the adjustment down into here. And as I start to stretch that gradient out and start to affect that area, then what's going to happen is we're still going to have issues with haloing and things like that around the top of our mountain up here, which I don't want. You know, I don't want that haloing effect from. It's almost like, yes, because we're selected the sky, we're doing a localized adjustment, but it's almost a global sky adjustment that we've done, okay? Which I think is okay, and it works for some situations, but this new technique that I've sort of been working on, I think is better, and it gives you more creativity to lighten and darken areas, dodge and burn different areas in the sky. All right. So let's delete that. Let's start again here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start with back to the masking tool again, and I'm going to go down here and I'm going to check luminancy range, okay? And the first thing I want to do is darken down the dark areas, okay? So I've just got this luminancy range. It's going to affect the whole image right now, and if you haven't used this luminancy slider, it's pretty straightforward. You've got these two sort of handles here. So actually you've got four handles. So you've got the square box, which is the range it's selecting, and then you've got these other little triangles left and right of that, and that's basically the feather on the mask, okay? So that's really important. We want to have some good feather. But what we're actually after is the darker tones. So let's move that down to the darker tones there. Let's move this into something. And what I'm doing is just looking at the sky, looking what that mask is starting to affect. And I don't want to go all the way. Actually, that's not bad. I don't mind that feather there. That's pretty good. So there's a nice feather up into those lighter tones on the right-hand side there. And that's what I'm after. Maybe not something like that, but you can see we've got a nice soft transition out of there. And I think that's nice. All right, so what we can do from this point is, you know, we can just grab the blacks. Let's pull the blacks down a little bit. So darken that up. And I'm just looking at the sky at the moment. I'm not worrying about what it's doing to the rest of the frame. I'm just looking at the sky. We can add a little bit more contrast. We could probably bring exposure down a little bit there. Don't be afraid if you go too far at this point, because the next step is going to really fix that. All right. So we've made our adjustment, we've darkened down the darker parts of our sky. But now here's where the magic comes in. We're going to intersect that with the brush tool, okay? And now basically, just like we did with the gradient before, but I've got the power of the brush tool, is I'm going to tell Lightroom, okay, that initial selection that I've made, that initial mask, that luminosity mask in the dark tones, I just want that to be applied in these areas. And something that's important when we do this is turn your feather and flow down. I just like to have it lower, okay, because you want to build this adjustment, all right? You don't want to go too crazy, but you want a nice soft brush. Oh, sorry. You want your feather right up. Sorry, you want a nice soft brush. It's the flow you want to turn right down. Turn your flow down a bit, okay? So I've got a nice soft brush now. You can see that's a really hard edge brush. This is a really soft brush here now. And I'm just going to start planing on this sky. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. Oh, there's a dust spot. And you'll see when I make my first brush stroke, okay, what it's going to do, it's going to remove the darkness from the rest of the frame, because wherever I paint with this brush now is where that initial adjustment, luminosity range adjustment, is going to start to come in. So you can see I've already clicked there. So I'm just going to start building on my adjustment up here. So you can see if you find you're not getting enough pushing through, then please turn your flow up. You can see, here we go. Here she comes now. And you can see I'm just going to not go too hard, like I can darken down around here, but I'm not going to go too crazy. Okay, but what I am going to do is, you know, near the edges of the frame, I can go a little bit darker. Okay. I'm just going to paint around here. And I don't have to worry because I know I've got that natural selection. I can make my brush a little bit smaller now. Just get into this area, and this is the area we're having trouble darkening before with that gradient technique. You know, let's get into this area here. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. And you can see because the selection fades out here, and you can see I'm just brushing where I want to darken the clouds down. We had a nice fade out into this section. You can see if I can paint over this light bit as much as I want, but because the initial adjustment wasn't there, it's not going to affect that area, okay? So that's the power of this, because I'm just affecting those darker midtones and the darker areas of the photograph, okay, at the moment. So you can see now, if I turn on this show overlay, I'm on my brush layer here, you can see what it's doing. It's really only brushing those tones into those darker areas. And I can go around now, and if I want to darken down some other parts now, I can just go in with that turned on and start to paint in more of those areas as well if I want to darken down some more areas. But you can see how nicely this adjustment's coming in, because it's really keeping away, and I've made a bit of a mistake there. And if you do that, you can just go to the erase here, or hold down the Option key or Alt key, I think it is on Windows. You know, I can just come in here and just feather that off a bit on the edge. That's fine. Not too worried about it because it is light. What I'm doing is really, really light and feathered. So that's the important thing here. Let's have a look. Yeah, looking pretty good. We've got a little bit of a halo there that I'm not happy with, so I might try and just feather this out a few times around here. Make a bit bigger brush here. And again, you can see the plus turns to a minus, and just make my brush a bit bigger here, and I can just feather out that adjustment on the edge there. And that'll get rid of any issues with haloing. I could have done the sky selection at the same place, but the problem is you start to get those hard edges, which we don't want. We want to keep everything nice and soft. All right. So let's have a look at that. Let's turn that on and off now and just see how we're going there. So that's before the darkening, and that's after the darkening. And you can see it's more localized in the areas I wanted it. It's being affected only in those dark tones. We're not affecting these light tones. And I think that's really, really nice. We're starting to get some nice drama in the sky without pushing things too far, which is really, really important. All right, so we're going to do this again. So let's create the plus tool, the plus button up here in the masking panel, and then luminosity range. And this time we're going to go the other direction. So I just want to affect the lighter tones. Okay, so I'm looking here. Grab this handle. Bring it down into the lighter tones, and I really want to make sure we're just going to get these lighter tones now This is important. I don't really want to affect the darker tones at all. I want to get some of those lighter tones up into that other side there. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. I'm liking that. I'm just looking at the feathering right now. Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm liking where that's at. All right, so now what I'm going to do is just push the whites up a bit. Okay, and I'm just looking at those lighter tones there. Sorry, up, not down, Johnny. I'm not worried about that blown out area because this is the power of this, okay, guys? The power of this is, you know, I don't have to paint in here. When we do that intersection with the brush, I won't be painting anything into this area because that's going to blow that area out. And that's the power of this technique, is being able to tell Lightroom where you want that dodging or where you want that burning, okay, by using these luminosity ranges. So it's really cool. All right, so let's go back up here. Oops. Let's click on their mask. Let's go to our luminosity range. Again, we're going to intersect with the brush tool. Hopefully by now you're getting a bit of an understanding of how this technique works. All right, so we're going to get our brush tool here, and I'm going to keep away from this bright area because we definitely don't want to add any extra contrast into there, okay? So I'll just turn that flow down. All right, and that's going to get rid of our adjustment. But now I'm going to be able to paint back some of these nice details in this area. So you're just working through here, working on some of these brighter tones. Stuff near the edge of the frame, you know, I mightn't want to brighten up too much because I wanted that natural sort of vignetting look that I'm adding, you know, by doing this way. And you can see it's just a soft. Such a nice way to add contrast. Then I'm going to go down in here, make my brush a little bit smaller. Left and right bracket keys will do that. If you're a keyboard person, just going to add a little bit more lightness down here on the horizon. All right, and we can keep working this as much as we want, but I think you're starting to get the idea now. So you can see I haven't blown out this area, I haven't darkened down, crushed any shadows. I've had full control over where that dodging and burning happens in the sky, and I'm getting some lovely drama there now. So I'll turn that masking off and then on. And you can see that looking good. I'm really liking where that's at now. We're starting to get that beautiful drama in the sky. Just to recap there, basically I call this cloud sculpting, and the way to do it is a luminosity mask in the dark tones and then intersect that with the paintbrush and softly paint back through where you want to darken down those dark tones. And then we do the opposite. We do a luminosity range in the lighter tones, and then we intersect that with a brush and we paint that with a nice soft feather brush just in the areas we want it. And it starts to build that localized contrast, but we've got full control over where that's happening, okay? And that's the power of this, is you get full creative control over how your dodging and burning happens in your sky, rather than using that selection that we did in the beginning. Even though it was a sky selection, it was still a quite, you know, it was affecting that whole sky, where we're starting to pick the sky apart and just affect the parts that we want to lighten and darken, and it really gives you some lovely control over that sky. Cloud sculpting in Lightroom. All right, I hope you enjoyed that one. First one back for 2023. Yeah, drop a comment, a like, and a heart, and if you really enjoyed this video, share it with your friends. That'd be much appreciated, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, I'm out. Cheers.